What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff Lund, and this is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, episode 118. Went out hunting last week, as I do every weekend, because that's what you do when you live here. You take advantage of the opportunities that are so close, because you don't have to worry about driving a long distance. You don't have to worry about buying crazy tags or drawing crazy tags. You just go hunting. But don't move here. It sucks. Last week I talked with Ryan about some muskeg techniques, and so we went out hunting this last weekend, and it was kind of what I expected because I had that confidence going, right? Like there should have been a change in my voice because this guy gets 2 weeks in a row where I get a buck, and all of a sudden I start thinking that I have some things figured out, and I'm like that band maybe that the first album comes out and you love the band because it's great, and then you change the tone once you start getting into some of that marketing stuff, and so people, album 3 and 4 is way different, and everybody starts liking them at album 3 and 4, but you knew them since album 1, and they were better at album 1. You liked them more at album 1 until they were sellouts. So I hope I'm not becoming a sellout because I'm talking with confidence here and excitement. Or I was talking with confidence and excitement because all of a sudden it seems like I'd figured some stuff out, and Ryan and I were talking about some tips and tactics, which usually I'm the opposite. I'm talking about, hey, what's going on? Can someone please help me? So, you see that in some it happens a lot, It's not really their fault, but, comedians or actors or anybody that produces a product, artists, outdoor writers, outdoor filmmakers, people like that, once they get big, they have to deal with, continuing to get and grow. And so the entrepreneurial angle changes a little bit. But yeah. Anyway, I'm still the old mediocre Alaskan, right? We're not going to be changing this podcast name anytime soon. So I was following some 5 basic rules that I've kind of established now that I feel less like kind of Frank the Tank when he gives that speech in Old School where he kind of passes out and does everything perfectly but doesn't know why. Right? Some people do that. They just run their program, and it's worked enough to keep them, at least moderately successful. But some of that reflective thing, look back, what did I do? And you're learning from the experience and talking to other people and being a hunter and figuring some stuff out. And so, talking to people and the things that I've thought that are the best for hunting are don't hike until you can see. Some buddies and I have talked about that. I've lost, opportunities on bucks because I'm headed through the woods before I can see stuff that's going on. And I've been going up logging roads that are all water barred out and alder trees growing in it, and there's bucks standing right there staring right at me, but I can't tell the difference between buck and branches because it's too dark because I'm out there too early. Sometimes you want to hike and get back certain areas, but a lot of spots, if you're camping pretty close to where the deer live, you don't want to be hiking through there before you can see, before you can make a shot. Always check on the wind, number 2, of course, always. I told on a previous podcast about how I planned my entire hunt 2 weeks ago with the wind in mind. So I went out and around so that I could hunt my way back. The wind would be better. So what looked like the best ground, I saved that for the way back. I was going to be out of the wind, so I didn't just kind of blow through it and hope nothing took note. And that ended up working, so all you start getting some confidence here. Things start accidentally working. This guy starts to, get excited about things. Third thing that I'm following is sound like a deer, not a dude. Like you're going to make noise. It's just inevitable. You're going to make noise. And so just to not sound like a bear that's just barreling through the woods, kind of like a deer that's gliding through it, just trying to keep that noise level to a minimum, keep that within their tolerance range. If you've been around deer, sometimes they spook, sometimes they don't, right? The ones that stick around, right? Obviously, there are certain times that you spook deer and don't even know about it. Sometimes you hear them that you bumped something, that you bumped something, and like, dang it, I wonder what that was. So it's kind of cool when you go out and you hunt and you see deer, and you don't hear that sound of bumping something. So you can assume that either you bumped them way before, or you're not bumping as many deer because you're paying more attention to wind and you're paying more attention to how much you sound, which is why it's when it's raining out, I don't like wearing a hood because you can't hear anything except for like the inside of the hood scraping on. So if there's a little bit of rain and you got the hood off, then it's going to be a lot more wet. But man, you can hear, right? And that's better. And the rain is kind of nice sometimes. It conceals the sound a little bit. Fourth thing I try to look at is look closely and close. If there's a muskeg that's like 4 muskegs away, I want to hunt that on my way to the muskeg, not just when I get there. And then rather than just scanning left to right, just really looking for that ear flick or that eyeball or that something to that kind of flux capacitor looking face. Not just looking for antlers, or looking for the bodies, like the same. A body of a deer isn't broken up, right? There's some texture to it, but it's like a uniform type texture, and looking like for those bodies is easier to pick out than if you just try to look for antlers, dude. There's just nothing. It's gonna be impossible. It's gonna be tough to see unless they're glowing, which is cool. And then just focusing on seeing them first, and these are things that I poached from so many different people. The Cody Rich Rich Outdoors, he talks about those a lot. Anybody, all of them talk about the same sort of thing. They're universal deer skills, and so it's not that I have devised, because Lund gets 2 deers in a row, and all of a sudden he's manufacturing 5 rules for deer hunting. No, these are just what I am sharing because I have found these things, and they worked for 2 weeks in a row, and I was really excited about this weekend to go out and put these things to the test, because now that I think I'm cool. So these are things that were on my mind when Ryan and I went out on last Saturday, and I decided to go with the bow because I'm on my last tag. I got 1 buck opening weekend, and then I got the 2 the last couple weeks, and so I'm down to my last tag, and so I wanted to get some bow experience. It's just different. It's a different challenge. It's fun, and if people want to take that out of context and say you enjoy, like, what you clearly aren't going to be persuaded by anything that I'm going to say. So you can just say whatever you want to say because it doesn't matter what I say. You're not going to be convinced, and you're going to have all this rhetoric that's anti this, and you enjoy killing animals, and you want the challenge and the trade. Whatever, man. You've made up your mind. You're not going to listen, so I don't need to engage in that. Bow, and so it's right at first light, and hiking through the transition between old timber and getting toward a muskeg, and I'm going super slow. The place I want to hunt is like 3 or 4 muskegs away, but I'm taking my time. Getting out there, and I'm walking through the forest, and it's super, super quiet and still and just awesome. No wind, and I'm going super slow, and I'm usually not a patient person, and I'm following this path that's cut through the kind of the mossy floor of the forest, and I look to my left, and there's a tree and kind of a little bit of an open spot where some sunlight's coming in. It's the very first part of the transition territory, and there's a doe. And I think, oh man, and it doesn't see me. So I just stand there, and it's 15 feet away. And I just kind of looked to the left, and it didn't occur to me to think, oh, there's a doe. I wonder if there's a buck with it. I just thought, okay, cool, there's a doe. Don't spook it in case the buck is close. And I look, and directly in front of me is a stinking buck, and it's still feeding. And there's like a couple trees that are 5-6 inches in diameter that are right there, and then some bushes. And I think, oh my gosh, here it is. And I see these antlers, and they have this beautiful like chocolate look to them. And the thing has just got its head down and it's feeding. I think, oh my gosh. And almost stroke out at this point. Got the heart beating really, really fast. And you get it's buck fever for sure, whatever you want to call it, right? It's so much different with the bow, right? And I've only been bow hunting for a couple years. I took my first deer 2 years ago. Didn't get anything last year with the bow. But just that close quarters and just, oh man, there's still so much more to do. When you have a rifle, if something's in range, it's pretty much a done deal, right? All you got to do is put the crosshairs on it, pull the trigger, and even if you're off a little bit, you're still going to probably get the job done. So most of the work is done when you get to that point with a bow. You're just like, dude, okay, here we go. Here's the chance. Now everything has to go right. So to my right, I was moving just my eyeballs. I wasn't even moving my head. And for a dude who's not really patient, that was crazy. So I moved my eyeballs, and there's two small trees, and then a gap that has a ton of branches in it, and then a large spruce tree of about 3 feet in diameter. And if he was going to feed to the right, he was going to come into this little opening eventually. So we're talking maybe 8 feet of feeding. Something like that. If he got to there, he'd be in the air in the territory. So I'm patient. He's feeding. And he's 15 stinking yards from me, and he doesn't see me yet. There's a slight breeze that's coming right at me, so the breeze is perfect. I accidentally had it perfect, and I'm just waiting for this to happen. I don't have the shot through the brush. I'm confident that it's going to walk into the gap, because you just see that on shows, and you talk about people talk about patience, and I'm pretty. Maybe I'm a wuss. I'm not just kind of a send it go Western guy very often. As you heard with the Wyoming, being paranoid about cows behind the antelope and private property behind the antelope, and just all kinds of stuff. I didn't take a shot on a couple antelope that were really close, but. So I didn't want to just try to force this arrow through the brush, because I didn't know how it would respond, and it wouldn't take much, especially if the thing is looking right at me. You go from a center mass shot to just nicking its flank in I don't know how much. So I didn't think that was the good shot. I was just going to wait till it was going to feed to the right. It was going to be broadside. It was going to be perfect. So it starts to feed to the right. When its head disappears for just a couple seconds behind that big spruce tree, I draw. And so I'm at full draw, and I'm just waiting for it to come out. And it comes out part way, and its body is still in this kind of tangle of brush.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plans shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
And then I don't really hear it take off. I just see it kind of walk backwards. And so I'm waiting for it to come back on the opposite side, kind of where the doe is, but it doesn't. It kind of hides itself and it goes directly away from me. And so I let down, and then the doe spooks out, and then I think, oh man. And part of me, there's like 2 parts of me at this point. The first part of me was like with popcorn in part of my brain, just waiting to see how the rest of my brain was going to react. Because if you have a rifle, and I've blown hunts, and you just get so pissed. You're just upset because you had this opportunity and you ruined it. And gosh dang it, that was a nice buck, and you stinking ruined it. And so what I was part of my brain was curious about was how I was going to react to a bow hunt and being that close and not having a shot. It wasn't like my fault, right? There was nothing else I could have done. I was going on one side of the trail. They were coming up the trail from the other side, and we just happened to converge. We didn't see each other walking into it because there was enough stuff in the way, and they'd kind of emerged from the transition. So how was I going to handle this? Was I going to throw a tantrum? Was I going to be upset, break an arrow or something like that? But I just kind of stood there for a couple seconds, and then I slowly started walking and following the deer tracks. Never found it. But it made me weirdly optimistic, because you have to pay your dues at some point, and you have to go through those experiences to get better, so that the next time you're better at it, right? And no one goes out. There's this idea, if you only watch YouTube videos, and the people who have the best YouTube videos and the best shows, they're the ones who get in and things work out. And they show clips of them not getting one is almost like this. Sometimes it seems humble, and sometimes it seems real. Other times it seems like, oh, look at what a great person I am. I'm eating this tag. Oh, look at what a great, responsible, ethical people I am. Or, hey, let's not get one. Let's do an episode in which we don't get one. So how was I as an ordinary person going to handle that? And going through that. And I was right there. I just didn't have a shot, and I don't know what else I could have done. But that happens. I think that's part of accepting the fact that happens. And sometimes you can do everything right and it doesn't work out. It's not your fault. It's someone else, or something else. I talked to some of my students about that, and being a basketball coach for 15 years, 14 years, whatever it was. Just because you want your kids to win because the kids. You like these kids better than the other kids, right? That doesn't mean it's going to happen, though, right? You go out there, you play hard like kids, you execute everything, and before you go into the locker room afterwards, well, I told them to do this, and they did it, and I told them to work hard, and they did it, and I told them to get after it, and they did it, and they still lost. So what am I supposed to say now? Because now it's, Coach, we did everything you said. Like, yeah, and you lost, and that sucks. But, that's just what happens. Just because we do everything right, and just because I like these kids better doesn't mean those other kids have to lose, right? Like, well, you said you guys want it, and so they're just going to respect the fact that you want it more, and they're just going to die. Or not. I mixed my metaphors there. I was transitioning to talking about a deer, and just because I want a deer with a bow doesn't mean the buck is going to respect me and just died. But I used that with the example of the kids, and that was weird. So it does not mean that the kids are going to metaphorically roll over and die, which means lose the game, just because you say you want it, or just because you do everything right. Sometimes it just happens. You don't really lose; you just get outscored. It's kind of a weird semantic thing. It makes some sort of sense, I guess. Maybe I'm just a loser. So I didn't get that buck, and I was certainly haunted by it. And I went out the next day, and I didn't see any bucks. But I can still see those antlers, man. I can still see those chocolate antlers and that head down just right in front of me. Unbelievable. I took a picture of the spot just to kind of, just get an idea to see if I remembered it the way I did. Because as the day kind of progressed, and I was still really excited about that buck. I was fired up about that. As the day progressed, I thought, well, maybe the brush wasn't very thick, and maybe you could have. And so you start, no, you can't do that. So as I was working my way back, I took a picture of the spot, because I'd marked on my Onyx, and it was there's no shooting through that. So it was a good call. But later, I saw a buck, and I was totally patient, and I just stared at it, didn't even draw. It was there was 4 little trees on the edge of this muskeg in that transition area. And I thought, okay, all right, he's going to step out. There's clearness. We're going to learn from the mistakes of the first one, even though there weren't any mistakes. But just be patient. Just wait. So I did. I actually wasn't sure if it was a buck or not, because there was so much garbage on the small trees between us that I took out my binoculars and just kind of peeked out just a little bit, and I saw at the base, or I saw his eyes, I saw his ear, and I saw a base of an antler. I didn't see how tall the antlers were, so I thought, sweet, it's a buck. I'm gonna just stay here until it gives me an opportunity to get a shot. It turned, and then it started walking directly away from me, and then angled a little bit, and so I kind of walked. It was kind of toward the muskeg, so I thought, this is going to be perfect, man. He's going to walk right into the muskeg. It's going to be awesome. Broadside shot. So there's this line of trees. So he disappears in the line of trees, and then I follow, or not follow, but I move like parallel to his movement. He's moving, so it's not parallel, intersect. He's moving directly away from me, but at an angle toward the right. I move straight to the right, so he's still walking away at a very, very harsh quartering angle. Away. I get out in the muskeg. He kind of emerges, but all I have is just the pie hole there. He takes his antlers and just rubs on a little spruce real quick, and then just not really ever a shot. And he turns and looks when I sniffed and when I drew, but there was nothing going on there. And then he starts walking away, and then faster. I've drawn at this point, and I'm shaking, but there's just no shot. I mean, he's told there's nothing in the way, but I'm not like the sneaking it in. I thought he was going to turn to the right and he was going to open broadside. That's what I was expecting. And so when that didn't happen, I kind of thought, oh man, what do I do? He's kind of walking away. So as he was walking away, there was like this thing in my brain that I was in fire mode, right? I was in shoot. But as he started walking away, like the abort button got pressed, but it was the abort that didn't make me re-rack it. I just kind of lowered the bow and then moved to the left and then fired. So I was well clear of the deer. But that was kind of weird. I'm glad that the instinct wasn't, I'm panicked, he's walking away, I'm in fire mode, I just got to try to put one on him, because that was terrible. Would have been terrible. So it was just kind of weird. He was moving away, and I just kind of drifted my bow to the left a little bit, and fired, or hit the trigger or something. Something happened there. So $2, 0, did not get him. Back to normal. People can make excuses for him because it was with a bow, and yeah, it was. That was a fact. But man, it was fun. That was awesome. The first one, I don't know if I would have been able to with a rifle. Maybe just fire through it, just send it through all that brush. Second one would have probably, I could have adjusted the angle, or I could have maybe been a little bit more. I don't think you panic. I wouldn't have panicked as much, or have been as hyped enough with the rifle. So I think that I would have been a little bit more patient maybe, and when it emerged, or maybe been a little bit more confident sneaking one in past the bung to the right a little bit and get some of that vital area, or just kind of pursued it. And I think I probably should have just stood there and waited, and as it kind of walked away, pursued gently. But I think it took off, because when I did eventually pursue, it was gone. But so you learn stuff, man. It was awesome. I wouldn't trade it, just because I think you got to go through those experiences. It's part of paying the dues. If you go out there and you shoot a 4-point on your first ever buck, you're just like, well, what do I do now? That's kind of the expectation. So I'm glad that it's not feeling easy, but I do feel like I've improved. There's like a 3-tiered system with 3 tiers in the tier. You have your beginner, your intermediate, and your advanced. I feel maybe like I'm a novice intermediate, or like a beginner intermediate, or an expert beginner, somewhere in that 3-pronged area. Certainly a long way from the expert or the advanced expert. But maybe in that middle level, starting to figure stuff out and reflecting a lot on stuff and talking to people about it. Yeah, that's fun. I hope to get better and grow out of it, but I also don't want to lose that perspective of being able to laugh at yourself. The reason I called this the Mediocre Alaskan is I read a lot of Bill Heavey, and it was clear that he was proficient at a lot of stuff. He did bow hunting and fishing, and he did so much stuff, and he was successful at a lot of it. But just keeping that I'm not an expert, I'm not better than you, listen to me type attitude. But he would share things that he'd kind of figured out, just as like a guy sharing, not as, hey, here are my tips, and I hope they get shared a lot. So that's kind of the attitude that I want to have, and I want to make sure that I keep, no matter how much better I get, kind of have that sense of humor and never outgrow or or think that I'm better than I am. So call that episode 118. Got to get some breakfast in me and head to school. It's 6:13 a.m. So we need to progress with the old morning program here. I usually get up at 5, and I'm on the road to school at about 6:30, so that gives me 15 minutes for the breakfast thing here. So I'll talk to you next time. Make sure you check out the MediocreAlaskan.com. Check out the Juneau Empire every other Thursday. Today I have a column in there which talks about that whole intermediate, beginner, novice level improvement, setting yourself up for failure at some point thing. I wrote it before I was unsuccessful this last weekend, so it has the voice of someone who's been successful and is on the verge of having some failure. You can check that out at MediocreAlaskan.com or check the link in the bio. And there you go. Talk to you next time.